Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Secular Homeschool Revolution. I'm your host, Ashley, and I'm so excited to have you join me today. Before we dive into the main topic of the day, I want to share a little behind the scenes story. When I started this podcast, it was somewhat of a secret project for myself. I didn't tell many people. I would mention it here or there that it was something I was interested in doing. And I definitely didn't share the episodes I had uploaded because for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to make sure it was something I was going to commit to. And two, it was a little bit of me second guessing myself. Was I offering anything of value? Did I know enough about what I was talking about? And so it was more about that than anything on why I didn't share it. And I needed to go back to my affirmation about taking up space. So last week, I finally looked at my analytics. So I never looked at them after uploading an episode. And you guys, I had 10 followers. And these were people that I don't know because I never shared my podcast with anybody. Do you know how exciting that was for me? So to those 10 amazing individuals who have chosen to spend their time with me and listen to me, I am truly grateful. I know that does not sound like a lot to everyone, but time is valuable. And these 10 listeners wanted to spend their time to follow and listen to my podcast. So that's a big deal. And then I also saw a very sweet comment that someone binge listened to my episodes. You guys, I was like, hype, okay? So I got bold and I shared it on my personal Facebook page. And the amount of support that I received from my friends and family was insane. I received some of the sweetest messages via text message or messenger, and I even printed out a few to put into my personal growth journal. So thank you for just all of it, and I am truly, truly, truly grateful. If you would like to learn more about me, you can find me on Instagram under thrifting underscore homeschool underscore mom on Instagram. It's thrifting underscore homeschool underscore mom. And I'll update it on the podcast bio so that you can click there. And also, if you'd like to check out our co-op, it is fortheculturehomeschool.com. That way you can learn more about what we do. Also, I'm in the process of figuring out a regular release schedule for episodes because my favorite podcast is Sisters Who Kill. I'm a true crime junkie, and the way that they process crimes is the same way I process them when I'm watching true crime shows. I'm like, girl, why did you kill that man after knowing him for 2 weeks? Like, what was the reason? And so they drop their episodes every Friday at midnight, and I'm usually up. So I'm like, 12:03, where's the drop? 12:07, where's the drop? So I would like to get there eventually. I'm growing in that direction, but I'm excited about this journey, and I can't wait to see where it takes us all. Now let's get into today's episode. The inspiration behind the episode comes from an event we recently had with our co-op, which was Black History Jeopardy. It was an amazing experience. Well, A, because it brought our kids together in a fun and educational way. And two, they were way more into it than we initially thought they would be. So we found a replica Jeopardy board on triviamaker.com, and we updated it with the questions and categories that we wanted. We created a study guide with the different categories and questions the kids could study. And we split them up into two teams that were named after HBCUs, historically Black colleges, universities. We had Howard versus Xavier. And we had to switch to head because the kids were so excited about pushing buzzards and yelling out answers. Head to head, we were able to control the environment a little bit more. And ultimately, Team Howard won. But the most beautiful part of this event was witnessing the parents cheering on all of the kids. You could definitely feel the love in the room, and it got me thinking. Imagine if people could find or build a community to have this level of support for their kids in their homeschooling journey. It would be mind-blowing. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How to start a co-op from my perspective, and how to find like-minded individuals to grow your co-op. And if you have any questions, you can definitely let me know. But let's get started. Speaking from personal experience, finding people who share your vision is absolutely crucial when starting a homeschool co-op. In my journey, I was fortunate to partner with my co-founders, Jen and Kia. I met Jen probably 5 years ago or right before COVID at like a park event. I didn't really get a chance to really engage with her. I think it was just some small talk. But I mean, she was a familiar face. And a few years later, post COVID, she had a community event at her house, and it was like a pool party. And so I decided to go. And I don't know if she remembers this, but I remember sitting on her back porch on her couch, and we were just talking, but I felt like we both were in this like transition stage, and maybe we both knew at that point that we would be homeschooling long term, and we weren't sure what the next move was, but I think we both were looking for community. And at one of her pool parties, Kia ended up coming. And Kia is just this light, and she was a fresh homeschooler. And she just has the best story. She has a lot of educational experience. And I remember her talking, and I was like, okay, we're vibing. So that was nice, and it was nice to keep in contact with them. So I will tell you though, it wasn't a seamless process to like find the right individuals. It did take a couple of tries to find people who were not only passionate, but also had the time to commit and the energy required for this new adventure, this new undertaking. Um, so we sat down and had a meeting, and we asked ourselves, what kind of space do we want and need for our co-op? And the answer was unanimous. We wanted a space that offered educational classes, centered in joy, support, and had a sense of community. So we also understood building a strong foundation with like-minded individuals who share these values became the cornerstone of our co-op, mostly because we all had the same story. We couldn't find our just right space. And it was because those people just weren't aligned with our values. And we had tried secular spaces. A lot of times they weren't progressive enough, or they just weren't diverse. And our BIPOC kids didn't always feel welcomed. So, and we also agreed that starting a co-op felt like a huge undertaking, especially because none of us had ever done this before. Jen found this blog post about a cottage co-op, and just the word cottage felt cozy. It looked and felt less overwhelming than a big co-op. I apologize, I don't have the source in front of me. I'm sure you can Google it, cottage co-op. And we do have a blog on our website about our experience as a cottage co-op. The original source, it was like 2 years ago when we talked about it. So again, I do apologize, I don't have it. But the framework was 4 families that met once a week at a co-op member's house, and parents taught the classes. And this modeled all the things that we wanted, right? It had educational classes, it centered in joy, and it had the sense of community we were looking for. And if we decided to grow, this would have been the perfect size and the perfect time to make this our foundation year, where we are able to like build the pillars of what we wanted our big co-op to be. So, the next thing we're going to talk about is planning and organizing. Neither are my strong suits because I'm a planner doer. I like to plan and do all simultaneously at once. It's a chaotic way I like to live my life. Um, and it could drive some people crazy. My co-founders are planners. Both of them are planners, and I know that me and Jen sometimes can get like really excited and our head in the clouds about things. And so Kia does a really good job at leveling us and being that middle ground. So we all play these like really cool roles that again complement each other. So some of the things that we had to plan and organize and decide on was how many families were going to be in our cottage. We knew we wanted it to be small, but what was the right number? When were we going to start? What location were we going to use? When will our breaks be? Were we going to teach the same class the full semester, or are we going to break them up into 6 week rotations? What age groups did we want to decide on? What were going to be appropriate, or what did we deem as appropriate educational classes? A budget, how to keep track of like registration. Did we want to really commit to having social media? So it was to like, track our progress. So there was a lot of little things that needed planning and organizing. We did join a Facebook group. Well, there's several Facebook groups that are for homeschool co-op leaders. And it was really helpful to answer any questions we had, or even to just make us realize there were things we hadn't thought about. So it helped in that gray area. So we also, what I think was the guiding light was creating an overall goal. And so our goal was, and it is on our website, our goal is to cultivate our children's potential, amplify their voices, and encourage them to exude excellence through academics, inquiry, and the fearless pursuit of their dreams. Our co-op community is rooted in a love of diversity and inclusivity. We are proud to be culturally centered, LGBTQIA plus supportive, and we are pro-science community. We felt it was extremely important that be bold and understood, and it helped define who we were so that the people that were following our social media or wanted to be a part of our cottage co understood this is who we are. So also, we decided to maintain a Facebook group that people could join who were not in our cottage co-op that we could do field trips with. And that is how Field Trip Friday came to fruition. As planning and organizing goes, when we were transitioning out from our cottage co-op to a big co-op, location was a very tedious process because most co-ops, or a lot of co-ops, are hosted out of churches, and churches were who we were approaching, and a lot of times we weren't getting any calls or emails back. And the ones that did were like, sure, we'll take your money, but you also need to sign a testament of faith. And that wasn't anything we were willing to compromise on. And so we had to like go back to the drawing board, and we started Googling progressive churches. And that really helped us in finding a location, because pretty much every progressive church that we reach out to locally called us back. We're currently at a spiritual center, and the pastor, I believe that's his title, he got back to us. He was like, oh, a homeschool group that isn't conservative? I'm intrigued. And so he really wanted to meet us to make sure we were authentically who we said we were. And so far, it's been a really nice relationship. But I want to say that is something that is said, like in the secular homeschool co-op, that it is difficult, or it seems to be more of a challenge for secular groups or co-ops to find a location, because homeschooling is so misunderstood if you're looking for locations outside of churches. And if it is a church, they're looking for more conservative homeschoolers. So let's discuss how we grew our co op. Our cottage co op began with the 4 families and 8 kids, and in the spring, we welcomed an additional family. So we went to 5 families and 9 kids. As our first year ended, we collectively decided to give the kids an end of the year cottage co op survey because we wanted to make sure that their voices were heard. You guys, the feedback was funny. Well, it was not like haha funny, but it kind of was because these kids had ideas and strong opinions, especially on the open ended questions. Um, and so the good news was we were moving in the right direction. The bad news was, well, it wasn't bad news, but they wanted co op to grow. They wanted to welcome more friends in their community. We had initially planned to start co op back at Jen's house for the fall, but because the kids all voted that they wanted to grow, we had to bid um, a farewell to Jen's home. She was so kind in opening it up to us, and we were able to do our first year of cottage co op with her and her family. And so we had 3 months to plan to find a new location, to register some new families, and it went by. I mean, 3 months kind of felt like a long time, but then it didn't feel like enough time. It was like we found a location, it was some yeses, and it was like, oh, we got to meet with the board. So that felt really like it was stalling us. We finding families was pretty easy. I believe we even had like a wait list for the start of our second year because we did have our Field Trip Friday group. People were following our social media. So when we put out the request, if anybody or an interest feeler, if anybody would be interested in joining our co op, we got a pretty good response. So that felt good. So we started our second year of our co op with 18 families and about 30 kids. So we grew a lot. That was 3 times than what we started the previous year. And so we had to like adjust our registration system, our overall fees, and our budget. And we even had to like design like class submissions for the parents because we did require all of the parents submit to teach a class because we want everyone to give to the community as much as they take from the community. And none of us get any accolades from this, but we want it to work as a community, as a system where we're all caring for each other's kids, we're all supportive of each other. And so those are the families that we wanted to attract. And so we put a big emphasis, once again, on community. And growing our community, we did discover that the power of documentation, using pictures and reels and blog posts really helped attract people. And me and like Tempe, I hope she doesn't mind I used her name, we're both pretty chatty Kathys. We're very friendly people. So like if we're out and about and we see kids who are homeschoolers, like we were like, oh, older kids who are out and about during the day, are they homeschoolers? And so like, hey, are y'all homeschoolers? And approach their families and strike up conversations. And I'm like, oh, we're homeschoolers too. We're a part of this group. It's for the culture. We're secular, diverse, and inclusive. And a lot of times that will either let people say, oh, I've been looking for that, or oh, thank you, we have our own group. Then that's fine because we both drew a boundary, like this is for us or it's absolutely not for us. Another way that I've like met people, or at least to help grow the group, is I've actually gone to other homeschool meetups. So I don't ever go in with high expectations. I go in with maybe there's another me here and they're looking for engagement for their kid and they're just here to be here. And so I will talk to anybody up. I don't ever really meet strangers. And I have been able to build a network that way. And I've also just put out feeler events of anybody want to meet at this local park? Is anybody going to the splash pad? So on and so forth. And so, it'll be 4 or 5 people saying, I'm interested, and we'll just meet up, start conversation, and then, hey, let's do this again, or hey, we won't do this again. So that's another way. It does take time, and there's going to be some awkward interactions, and there's going to be some interactions where you find like-minded individuals, but the point is, it's going to take time. And the more you put yourself out there, like I'm putting myself out there with this podcast, you'll start building connections that will blossom into a thriving community. Growth. Not only did our organization grow by families, it also grew by status. We officially obtained our 501c3 status, and we got a couple of grants. So we jokingly said that 2023 was our year of asking. And so we were just like asking for things that were like local and available to nonprofits in our city. We were applying for grants, and we were just going for it. While we were just going for it, we heard a lot of no's, but we also heard some yeses, and those yeses ended up being like very big deals. And so, but it did take a little bit more no's to get to the yeses, but the point is we didn't stop. And we wholeheartedly were like, yes, okay, it's all coming together. We can do this. And we haven't quite figured out an affirmation collectively as a team yet for 2024, but man, the year of asking in 2023 was so good for the culture. I hope that this episode has sparked inspiration, or at least guided you in the right direction to initiate your group or co-op or your first feeler post that will enable you to connect with local community. Always remember that this is a journey of growth, so it may start small, and it may be small for a while, but with dedication and strategic outreach, you can build a community that will flourish and reflect the values you want for you and your family. Continue to be an education revolutionary, and until next time, stay committed to the cause.